thank the JLAC consultant Tram Trong for the fine work done on this audit request. I'm here to request that an audit be performed in regard to the Orange County Board of Education. The audit asks for a comprehensive review of the OCBE's actions over the past 5 years, determine whether the board complied with civil rights, transparency, and other legal requirements concerning its decisions and how they may have affected student outcomes, complaint handling, protected student groups, and whether its use of public resources, litigation decisions, and employee complaint or whistleblower processes were lawful, prudent, or within its statutory authority. The audit request includes a focused operational review of Orange County Board of Education's oversight and spending practices, determine whether its charter school authorization, monitoring, contracting, and procurement and legal counsel selection are in compliance with the law. The reason for this are transparency concerns. Specifically, a March 2023 writ petition alleged Brown Act violations tied to the January 5, 2023 meeting, including serial meetings. Public complaints also raised concerns that legal spending was not publicly available. Student impact complaint handling, board actions including reported firings of top administrators, how that may have affected school operations and its consequent impact on students. Political or ideologic influence concerns concerning governance disputes centered on LGBTQ policies and curriculum, library content, and educator climate. Litigation costs in particular, as someone who may return to the full-time practice of law next year, I suppose I shouldn't be so concerned about litigation costs, but over the last 5 years, either spent or projected to be spent $8.7 million on litigation. Even for a litigator, that sounds like a lot of money. And how those decisions were made and their outcomes. Also, charter oversight concerns concerning charter oversight of those charters that have been approved. Contracting concerns, at least 6 recent instances of unlawful contracting under the Education Code, an estimated $500,000 or more in potentially unlawful expenditures. In addition, employee retaliation, whistleblower concerns, a settlement involving a former communications officer, Seth Stevens, followed by a reported Title VI retaliation complaint. All those issues and reasons are why I've asked for an audit in connection with the Orange County Board of Education. With me to testify is Lisa Hickman, President of the Tustin Educators Association, and Mr. Andy Thorburn, the founder and CEO of Contemporary Policy Institute. I ask for an aye vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Thorburn, Ms. Hickman, whenever you're ready, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator. Thank you to the committee. The Senator mentioned $8.7 million of legal expenditures. I'd like to mention that in the 4 years prior to that expenditure going up, for 4 years, the total expenditure for outside legal counsel was $51,000. And when this board came in with a majority and started to pursue various kinds of governance issues, that went up over 5 years to over $8.7 million. We think that an audit is the proper vehicle to look at 3 aspects of the activities of this board. One is when they approve or are functioning as the appellate body for denial of charter schools, they don't seem to ever apply the criteria that the state law asks them to apply. They simply come into it with the attitude that all charters should be approved. I've been physically at meetings when they have approved charters against the advice of the staff of the Department of Education, which has pointed out legal deficiencies in the application. In the governance issue, they actually handed in a budget that was illegal under state law and received a letter from the Board of Education here in Sacramento from the state board stating that it was not illegal, and they sued under that issue. That's part of the $8.7 million. So from the issue of charter school approvals, which they do not do in an even-handed manner, from the issue of governance in which they appear to have violated the state law at least on 2 occasions and are suing under that basis, in addition to which they use an outside counsel, possibly in violation of the law requiring them to use a counsel that was already available to the state, to the county board, and to this county Department of Education. That's also a matter of litigation. both because of charter schools and governance issues, which lead to this extraordinary expenditure for which we do not have full insight, we don't have full transparency, we believe that an audit of this board would shed light that the public needs to see and that the regulatory bodies here in Sacramento need to see to find out if this board is operating in the public interest or pursuing some other private partisan agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hickman.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to address you today. My name is Lisa Hickman, and I am the president of the Tustin Educators Association. I am here representing the California Teachers Association in support of Senator Umberg's request to audit the Orange County Board of Education's public administration practices. I am here not just on behalf of CTA, but on behalf of educators and students all across 28 school districts in Orange County. The County Board of Education plays a critical role. They oversee inter-district transfers and expulsion appeals and are responsible for approving district budgets and providing fiscal oversight. These responsibilities are significant as the board ultimately determines how effectively schools prepare youth for future success. And they demand transparency, accountability, and a commitment to serving students above all else. Every one of our 28 districts must open their books to the board for audit and approval. It is only right that the same transparency be applied to the board itself. While they are tasked with overseeing how local districts spend their funds, they have redirected significant public education dollars towards lawsuits challenging California law. Funds that should be directed towards students and classrooms. We are also seeing an alarming trend of the board authorizing charter schools that bypass local school boards entirely. The proposed audit would shine a light on the legality of these approvals and whether there are potential conflicts of interest or political influences in these decisions. Public education must remain equitable, transparent, and free from political agendas. As teachers, we are taught to always bring the truth forward. And as I tell my second graders, if you're not doing anything wrong, you should have nothing to hide. This audit is not about politics. It is about accountability. It is about ensuring that public funds are used responsibly, that decisions are made transparently, and that the Orange County Board of Education is operating in the best interest of the students and the communities it serves. I respectfully urge you to approve the audit request. Thank you for your time and your commitment to public education.
Thank you. Mr. Parks, 1 minute. Madam Secretary, could you call roll so we could establish a quorum?
Assemblymember Harbidian.
Here.
DeMaio. Here. Fong. Here. Hart. Hoover. Here. Clark Silva. Ransom. Senator Cabaldon. Here. Ashby. Becker. Here. Cervantes. Ortiz. Dolly. Valadares. We have a quorum.
We did it. We should all be very, very proud of the fact that we just established quorum. So thank you very much. We did. Mr. Parks, please.
Thank you. Senator Umberg's request has my office address 6 primary audit objectives shown as objectives 2 through 7 in your materials. Objective 2 has us evaluate the board's compliance with open meeting and transparency laws such as the Ralph M. Brown Act, the Public Records Act, and the Political Reform Act. Objective 3 has us determine whether or not the board used its public resources in a manner consistent with applicable law, grant requirements, and program goals. Objective 4 has us evaluate the board's procurement and contracting practices to determine, for example, whether the board's policies mirror best practices and were consistently followed, such as engaging in competitive bidding and following policies to identify potential conflicts of interest, and also whether or not the board monitored contractor performance and actually obtained expected deliverables from contractors. Objective 5 has us quantify the litigation costs and the settlement costs associated with the board's activity. Objective 6 has us evaluate the board's process for approving charter schools and also exercising oversight of the performance of the charter schools that it approves. And Objective 7 has us focus on the board's whistleblower program and how it handles complaints of employee retaliation. I estimate this audit would take 4,200 hours to complete.
Thank you very much. Mr. Thorburn and Ms. Hickman, if you could please, Sure, absolutely. You can go. But while we do that, if we can bring up the County Board of Education, take your seat. Go ahead, Mr. Vice Chair.
Yeah, thank you. So I wanted to turn specifically to the charter school provisions because I'm trying to understand what the specific issue is at stake here. So the testimony was largely, it sounded like what is the typical disagreement that exists in maybe 110% of all the school districts and counties across the state, which is that the districts and their collective bargaining agents all believe that the county over-approves, typically. Is there something specific about what's going on in Orange County that you could describe that we're focusing here? Because that broader issue is a major policy question. It's one the legislature started to grapple with, well, has been grappling with for years, but especially last year. But it's not clear to me that an audit of one exemplar county office in the entire state is the right way to get to the general topic. But if are there specific issues about how Orange County is dealing with charter school authorizers, both the authorizing and the review of authorizers subsequently, that is at issue here?
Senator Cabal, let me start with an answer, then I'll ask my witnesses to correct me. So the difference here is you're right. There are many disputes with respect to authorization between local school districts and, for example, the Board of Education. This is a bit unique in that it's where the Board of Education's own staff points out deficiencies, where there are clear omissions, there are clear deficiencies, and they are either ignored or overridden, that creates the larger issue. So when there are policy differences between, for example, the local school board that says, we don't need another charter school for whatever reason, versus where the staff itself says this application is deficient. That's item one. And item two is, after it's approved, is where there are allegations of misconduct, where there are allegations of misspending, it's then the board's responsibility to engage in some sort of investigation. It's not just whether or not the investigation was adequate, whether or not it even existed at all. So let me now turn to my witnesses and see what I said that was wrong. So,
well, I don't think anything was wrong, but we could probably add some color to it. I think the point that we would make is that the evaluation at this appellate division by this board does not appear to be on the merits of the case. I've been at a meeting of the Anaheim City Council, Anaheim Board of Education, for example, where an applicant was so sure that the county board would approve them if they were denied, that they didn't even show up at the Board of Education meeting in Anaheim to defend their application, knowing that they could get approved at the county level. Because the county, it's a totally pro forma process. There's no investigation. And even when the staff says that they don't meet the legal requirements financially or don't have qualified teachers, I've been in meetings where the board will overrule that. So I don't know if that goes on in the rest of the state. If it does, maybe we have to do more than one audit. But I do think it goes beyond the policy problems that you alluded to, which I think are generally statewide. I think this board has a very unusual pro forma approach to the whole process.
All right, I appreciate that. I mean, I think that as if the audit moves forward, and I'm supportive of it, is that the audit, that's what we're asking the auditor is sort of not. Is this our best case example of what a board should do, as opposed to is this board within two percentiles of the median or something? Is it a normal board in what is a universal controversy? Of course, if there are other issues, legal issues that we'd want to surface them. But I do think that, I think you mentioned shine a light on the bigger challenge. That's more work than the auditor, I think, can handle in this audit. I think the more precise focus on irregularities and bias and that sort of thing in this particular agency would be more useful narrowing. So appreciate it.
To be clear, I'm quite proud of some of the charter schools in Orange County. The School of the Arts is a nationally known school. The Samueli Academy is a nationally known school. So this is not part of the anti-charter fight.
Honorable members of the committee, my name is Greg Rowland. I represent the Orange County Board of Education. Senator Umberg's audit request lacks any factual predicate whatsoever. We prepared a comprehensive legal review for the committee, including every possible allegation raised in the letter, including the mechanisms for resolution and multiple declarations under penalty of perjury. Here are the facts. There has been no formal complaints against the Orange County Board of Education in the last 5 years. None. Going in order of Senator Umberg's concerns, there have been no Title VI, Title IX, or IDE complaints filed against the board. There's been no Brown Act cure and correct demands. There have been no Public Records Act litigation, and there have been no Political Reform Act complaints against the board. There's been no taxpayer actions. There's been no criminal referrals. There has been no whistleblower or retaliation cases brought against the board. Regarding charter school oversight, in the last 5 years, the board has rendered 33 decisions on charter schools, and only one has been challenged. And in that case, the State Board of Education ruled unanimously in the board's favor. There have been no complaints alleging violations of the Public Contracts Code. All board members have their required ethics training, and the board has ruled on over 100 interdistrict transfer appeals or expulsion appeals in the last 5 years. That's their primary statutory responsibility, and yet there's been no challenge from either a parent or a school district in that regard. Litigation, yes. The board has participated in litigation in accordance with state law. And if their participation was impermissible or improper, the courts would have so ruled. They did not. And much like this legislature, the board is immune from acts taken in the course and scope of their employment. Some of Senator Umberg's more subjective concerns, such as ideological influence or fiscal prudence, there is no legal recourse. But there is recourse at the ballot box. And the board trustees have won 8 of the last elections, losing none. So on behalf of the board, we ask if there's no complaints, where there's multiple statutory enforcement mechanisms available, yet none were ever invoked, and the voters have spoken and will continue to speak, what justifies this audit? And why now? Why now is this committee being asked to do something it's never been asked to do in the history of this committee, which is audit a county board of education? And while considering that, please keep in mind that we're asking the auditor not only to second guess the decisions of an elected body for which they're immune, but also we're asking the auditor to second guess multiple rulings by the court and our own State Board of Education. And for issues that the statute has lapsed years ago.
30 seconds. Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tom Sheehy, representing the Orange County Board of Education. I've represented them for the last 4 years. 3 times, Mr. Chairman, in the last 4 years, members of Mr. Umberg's caucus have introduced bills, all with the same intent, explicit, to change the way in which the trustees on that board are elected. Why? Because they haven't been able to beat them at the ballot box, and they don't like the fact that my client supports charter schools and parental rights. 3 times there have been bills introduced. It's failed all 3 times. Senator Min, 4 years ago, his bill failed in the Assembly. Senator Newman, 2 years later, his bill made it to the governor, but the governor vetoed his bill, saying it stomped on local control. It would be very expensive because of the state mandate, and he didn't see any problems with the board that would justify reconfiguring it and change how they get elected. Not to be deterred by any of that, despite the fact that Senator Umberg lives down in the district, he's never been to a single board meeting. He's never talked to a single one of my client trustees, never, okay? He's never sent them a letter, put anything on the record, and then he introduces SB 249 last year, and it fails in the legislature. Not to be deterred on his mission to change this board through some method other than the voters, he now comes to you with what is a purely political request.
I'm just going to pause you. I'm just going to pause you really quickly, just not to impugn anyone's motives as to why certain. Okay. Okay. Just stay on point. Thank you.
Fair enough. I'm almost done. It appears to me and others that the request here on this audit is because they couldn't get their bills through. They couldn't beat my client at the ballot box. They don't like their pro-charter school or pro-parent stance. And now here they are asking what we think is a fishing expedition to have the auditor come in, be the first time ever the state's directing the auditor to go audit a county board of education. What's going to happen next? Are you going to have a city council whose decision you don't like? I don't mean you personally, sir, but a member of the legislature going to have a city council that they don't like their decision, they're going to have the auditor come in and audit that. It's a misuse of scarce auditing resources. As prior witnesses said, and prior, not just Mr. Ulbricht's matter, but other matters that have come here today, the auditor's resources are scarce. They have limited time, limited resources. Why are we having them audit a function that is clearly working so well? No complaints in the last 83 agenda items over the last 5 years. None, not one.
Thank you very much to both of you. I'm going to let Senator Umberg respond to some of those points. But before that, do any members here, actually, Senator, let me just go to you. I usually don't do that, but given the tenor of that testimony, I'm just going to let you respond.
Well, let me just, apparently Mr. Sheehy doesn't like me, but number one. Number two is that some of his allegations with respect to me.
The microphone, if you just make sure the microphone's in front of you.
Basically interacting with board members are simply factually not true. But let me just go through some of the facts here. These are indisputable. Here are the 7 lawsuits that are the predicate to this action, just separate and apart from not engaging in the role that the Board of Education is supposed to engage in with respect to oversight, with respect to compliance with the law concerning charter applications, compliance with the law concerning whistleblower allegations, and I'll let my witnesses also respond. But here, Budget Authority lawsuit number 1. Each side engaged in litigation as between the Board of Education and the Superintendent of Education, which lasted 6 years. Budget level dispute with California Education Board of Education. That's lawsuit number 2. Legal counsel authority lawsuit. That's number 3. Number 4, the COVID school closure lawsuit against Governor Newsom. That's number 4. Number 5 is the mask mandate lawsuit. Number 6 is the education mandate challenges lawsuit. Number 7 is the parental notification lawsuit. So this has turned into be basically a litigation machine. I understand that we had indicated that $8.7 million has been spent by the Board of Education. The cost to the state and the cost to the courts have not been estimated here. And just for those reasons alone, I would ask that we take a good, strong look at the Board of Education and their practices.
Thank you. And I know there are other questions. So, Mr. DeMaio.
Thank you.
By Mr. Chair, 1 second. I understand there were handouts that were provided to members of the committee. If we could see those as well, that would be, I think, helpful.
Great. We will make sure you have them. Mr. DeMaio, we do only have 20 more minutes with this room, so I do want the questions from the members to be able to be entertained. So thank you.
Understood. And, Senator, if someone disagrees with your proposal, it's not that they dislike you. They dislike the proposal that you brought forward. I'm just going to cut to the chase because we're limited time, and I think Mr. Sheehy made a good overview of why this is not warranted. I'm appalled at the audit because it is politics. When one of the witnesses provides in testimony, this audit is not about politics, that, my dear, is when it is about politics. I've looked at your board of directors, all union, the other group, completely union, Democrat activists. The senator did point out this seems to be a policy disagreement. And if we, as legislators, decide to issue an audit when the community gets to decide policy in elections, then we're going to be wasting the precious resources and the bandwidth of our auditor. And it sets a very dangerous precedent. A year ago, we were here with a school district in Riverside that has a laundry list of corruption and mismanagement and ethics violations and financial transgressions. But because a powerful senator said that they did not want to have an audit, the audit was killed. Now we are here with a school board, a board of education, that has a pretty darn good record, a stellar record. Their only demerit is they allegedly are approving too many charter schools, that they haven't always caved into the union, which there's a lot of Democrat-run school districts around the state of California that don't always agree with their unions. And of course, they've sued the state of California for bills that infringe upon parental rights. Oh my goodness. So if you stand up and challenge a decision of Sacramento and take them to court and win, there's no apology from the legislature that we screwed up on the bill. The courts smacked us. Instead, we're going to weaponize our auditor to go and try to find and investigate every nook and cranny. What a chilling of constitutionally protected rights. When there are lawsuits, it's because, and the board has won many of those lawsuits. When there are lawsuits, it's because we have violated people's constitutional rights or we broke the law. And we should not be weaponizing the auditor to punish people who bring valid claims to court. If they're not valid, the judges will decide they're not valid. And if they continue to litigate and waste money and lose court cases, then the voters ultimately, I think, would be persuaded that we have a bunch of sue-happy trustees that need to be replaced. I hope my colleagues see this for what it is. I think you do see it for what it is. I don't want us to set a precedent here, though, because then every single group that is unhappy with their Board of Education or school district will be marching up and asking us to order an audit. And that is just an abuse of this function. I urge you, cooler heads need to prevail. Let's not accept the audit and vote against it.
Senator Hoover.
Thank you.
And I'm just going to, we do have a time check here. We have 15 minutes. And so absolutely want to get your points across, though. Go ahead.
So, I have to align myself with my colleague. This appears to me as a very clear, first of all, it is terrible precedent. Second of all, it is a very clear weaponization of this committee for political purposes. There's no doubt of that. We can deny that all day, but that is exactly what is happening here. I think my first question would be for the auditor is, how many audits has your office, obviously not necessarily you as auditor, but your office in the history of the state auditor, audited a county board of education? I'm actually just curious for the record, just because I don't know the answer.
And to be honest, I can't think off the top of my head what that number is, but if we have, I would imagine it's very small.
Have there been any during your time as auditor? I guess that would be a...
No.
Okay, thank you. And it would be interesting to get that information, obviously, but my guess is that the number would be very small. And I think it really goes to show that the type of precedent that we would be setting with this audit. What has been described today by the proponents of this audit has essentially been what goes on at every single county board of education in the entire state, every single month, at every single hearing, which is using outside counsel, not something that's against the law, not something that is problematic. It's something that every school district in the state of California does. Approving charter school applications, that is quite literally one of the main roles of a county board of education in state law. So the idea that what has been described here is that, and I think this is the one that really bothered me the most, going against a staff recommendation to approve a charter school. This happens every single month in California because very often the staff of an education board is very anti-charter while the board members are very pro-charter. So the idea that somehow overruling an administrative staff decision is somehow problematic is not evidence of wrongdoing. I think the opponents of this audit that spoke in favor of the Board of Education here, County Board of Education, made it very clear there are no legal concerns that have been raised. And Senator, I want to ask you a question because you're raising concerns about the amount that the Board of Education is suing the state. I'm pretty sure, do you know how many lawsuits that Attorney General Rob Bonta has filed against the President of the United States in just this term of the Trump presidency?
I don't. No.
Yes. Well, the answer is 44 lawsuits at a cost of, I believe this legislature actually passed a bill creating a pot of money for about $50 million that I don't know the voting record on that bill. I would expect that many of the people in this room supported taxpayer dollars going to sue the federal administration. Now, I don't want to get into the merits of that. I don't think anyone wants to get into the merits of that. I think the question is that when there is disagreement, it is often appropriate to take legal action. And you know, it was interesting in the facts that you read on the 7 lawsuits that have been cited. It's just amazing to me, you know, sort of some of the examples that you used. So, you know, suing the state government for the longest school shutdowns in the entire country that in retrospect, we now have evidence were detrimental to the outcomes and the health of our children. That is a lawsuit I would 100% get behind, and that is a lawsuit that they absolutely were right to bring forward. Suing over a mask mandate that went on longer than any other mask mandate in the entire country. I was on a board of education during the pandemic. We literally had an ordinance pass at the county level that said, I, as a board member, could sit in my Board of Education chambers and not wear a mask, while every student in every classroom in my district had to continue to mask. It was one of the most, I would say, the worst examples of good government, and it was an absolute terrible time, I think, in our state when it came to the amount of mandates and the amount of just mandates that were coming down from the state. Those were absolutely lawsuits that should have been put. And then the Supreme Court just recently ruled in favor of a lawsuit that came out of California that supported parental rights. So, you know, I think one of the really frustrating things to me is a lot of these lawsuits that you mentioned as evidence here actually were the right thing to do. And finally, to the point, as my colleague brought up about this not being about politics, I think it's absolutely clear that this is about nothing but politics. That's why we've had this history of bills that have been directed exactly at this Board of Education for the last few years that have been unsuccessful. This is now just the latest attempt to simply silence a Board of Education that some members of this legislature disagree with. I think it's terrible precedent. I think we absolutely are weaponizing the audit committee with this, and I would encourage my colleagues to vote no.
Vice Chair Cabal, then we're going to open it up for public comment.
Great. Right after the gold rush, when the Orange County Board of Education and the other 57 boards of education came together to form the state of California, that never happened. The county boards of education are purely an instrumentality of the state. This analogy of the sovereign state of California being one of the states that is the basis of our federal system and a constitutional democracy, that is the same as the Orange County Board of Education or the Davis Cemetery District or any other local government entity set up by the state of California, is just patently and constitutionally false. And in fact, here we're talking about not even general taxpayer dollars. The Orange County Board of Education, like all other county boards of education, derives most of its revenues from property taxes and from us, from Proposition 98. So these are funds that are for the education of young people. And although it can be enticing and seductive to say I want to be on a board that can control money that I can divert away from kids in the classroom and special needs kids and work job training programs and instead divert it to litigation, that is absolutely a question that's of concern to the state of California. And so I do think this is an appropriate audit in this case to try to root out this question. And I'd also note, just although this is my first meeting, actual business meeting of this committee, I've seen enough of the audit requests. I guess they're all confidential, other than the ones that are on our agenda. But I've seen it. This is not groundbreaking. The Casablanca notion that nobody's ever seen anything political in this process before is kind of ridiculous. And this one isn't that. This is trying to make sure that the dollars that we're appropriating for under Proposition 98 to support the education of children and job training programs in Orange County are being appropriately expended in that way. And so I appreciate the focus of the audit. I appreciate the county board's vigorous defense. But this narrow question about the use of these resources to generate what the sponsors described as a litigation machine is an entirely appropriate one. Messy and as uncomfortable and as public as it might be. And if the other questions result in, if there's never been anything filed, then great. The auditor will be able to spend virtually no time on some of the other questions that are in the request. But the core question of the litigation machine diverting resources from kids and from job training is a perfectly legitimate one. And I'm also pleased to recommend, and I vote on the Senate side as well.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. We're going to open this up for a quick public comment, and then we're going to have a close, and then we're going to vote.
Got it. Chair, Vice Chair, committee members, Brian Miramontes, California Teachers Association, and strong support. Appreciate the author for bringing this forward. Thank you.
Cassie Mancini on behalf of the California School Employees Association in support. Thank you.
Senator Umberg, please close.
Well, thank you very much. I have great confidence in our state auditor. I have great confidence that the examination will reveal exactly what has happened and what is happening with the Orange County Board of Education. If the auditor determines that this is just a political fight, I don't think that's the case, but if the auditor makes that determination, so be it. If the auditor finds that the money was spent appropriately, so be it. If the auditor finds that they've basically adhered to state law, so be it. That's the purpose of the audit. And so with that, I'll simply ask for this committee to authorize the state auditor to look at the practices, the procedures of the Orange County Board of Education and let the chips fall where they may. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator. I believe this is a bona fide audit request. I do have an aye recommendation. I will entertain a motion at this moment. I have a motion. Do I have a second? And I have a second. Madam Secretary? I'm sorry. Sure. So we will need a majority in both the Assembly and the Senate. So the members here, you would need 4 from the Senate and then 4 from the Assembly. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
2026-106, Orange County Board of Education, Public Administration, Oversight by Senator Umberg. Assemblymember Harbidian.
Aye.
Harbidian, aye. DeMaio. No. DeMaio, no. Fong. Aye. Fong, aye. Hart. Hart, aye. Hoover.
No.
Hoover, no. Quirk Silva. Yes. Quirk Silva, aye. Ransom. Ransom, aye. Senator Baldwin. Aye. Baldwin, aye. Ashby. Becker. Cervantes. Aye. Cervantes, aye. Cortese. Aye. Cortese, aye. Dolly. No. Dolly, no. Valadares. Valadares, no.
That's going to be on call, I believe. Okay.